Okay, let's jump right into this deep dive. We've got a really interesting piece here. Profit through quality equipment rentals.
Yeah, it really gets into that classic question, doesn't it? Spending more up front versus, trying to save money initially.
Yeah.
What's the real cost?
Exactly. And this article starts with a hook that frankly sounds almost unbelievable, earning over $250,000 from just 3 barbecues. Just 3. It's one of those numbers that makes you pause.
It definitely does. And, they use that really specific example to make a much bigger point, I think, about how that initial price tag doesn't tell the whole story.
Right. Especially when quality comes into play. It's about the long-term value, not just the sticker price.
Precisely.
So that's our mission today. Unpack this barbecue story. How do they actually do that? What are the numbers, the mechanics behind it?
And what's the lesson here for anyone evaluating costs versus long-term benefits? Not just in business, maybe other areas too.
Yeah. What can you take away? Let's get into it. So the author kicks things off by admitting a pretty common mistake they made early on in their party rental business. What was the initial plan?
Well, it was the one that seems logical on the surface, right? Buy the cheapest equipment you can find.
Get it out the door fast, make the money back quick.
Exactly. Minimize that upfront investment. Focus purely on speed to return.
And how did that work out for them? Spoiler, not well, I gather.
No, not well at all. The article makes it clear the cheap stuff it fell apart. It was constantly breaking down, wearing out super fast.
So they were spending money they hadn't planned on for repairs?
Right, repairs, replacements.
Yeah.
And think about the lost income, too. If your gear is broken, you can't rent it.
Ah, good point. Downtime costs money.
Definitely. So those initial savings, they basically vanished. It turned into this cycle of extra costs and missed rental opportunities. It was a painful lesson, I think.
Penny wise, pound foolish, as they say.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
It forced them to rethink their whole strategy.
Okay, so that painful experience led to a completely different approach to buying equipment.
Yeah, instead of just finding slightly better cheap stuff, they went full pivot towards genuine quality. And the star example is these commercial barbecues.
Right, they mention a specific brand, Crown Verity, known for being really heavy-duty stainless steel, built to last, basically.
And they didn't just dip their toe in, they went for 3 of them right away.
Which brings us to the cost. Compared to those first cheap grills, that might have been, what, a couple $100?
These were significantly more. The article says $2,100 each.
Wow. So that's $6,300 up front, compared to maybe $600 or $700 for 3 cheap ones. That's a big commitment.
A huge difference, especially when you're trying to manage cash flow. But that investment is key to the whole story.
Okay, so here's the multi-million-dollar question. Well, $250,000 question. How do we get from $6,300 to over $250,000?
This is where the numbers get really interesting. First off, the longevity.
Yeah, this part blew my mind. 23 years. These barbecues have been rented out for 23 years, and the article says they're still in use.
It's incredible, isn't it? For rental gear, that's almost unheard of.
So, okay, 23 years. How often were they rented?
They estimate, on average, somewhere between 10 and 15 times per year per barbecue. The article uses 12 rentals per year as a sort of baseline for the initial math.
Okay, 12 rentals per year per unit. And the price? Did that stay the same?
No, it went up over time. Started at $110 per rental, now it's $125. For the long-term calculation, they use an average figure of $120 per rental.
Right, makes sense. So let's do that basic math. 3 barbecues.
Yep, times 12 rentals each is 36 rentals a year total.
36 rentals times, say, that $120 average rate.
Comes out to $4,320 in revenue per year, just from those 3 grills.
Okay, $4,320 a year. Now multiply that by the 23 years.
And you land at $99,360.
$99,000, almost $100,000, which honestly is already an amazing return on a $6,300 investment that's paid for itself like 15 times over.
Absolutely. But remember, the article claims the actual revenue is much higher. It edges closer to $250,000.
So how does it jump from just under $100K to over $250K? Where does the extra $150,000 come from?
Well, a few things mentioned in the source. First, that 12 rentals per year figure was conservative. Often, it was closer to the 15 rentals per year mark, especially in good years.
Ah, okay. More frequent rentals.
Exactly. Plus, they've been charging that higher $125 rate for a good chunk of those 23 years, not just recently.
Right. The average might be $120, but the later years pull that average up in reality.
And then there's peak season pricing. High demand weekends, holidays, last minute bookings. they could likely charge a premium then.
So it's a combination of more rentals in the baseline, higher rates kicking in, and premium pricing opportunities over 2 decades that really juices the total.
Precisely. That's how you get from the simple math to that eye-popping $250,000 plus figure. It wasn't just one factor, but the sustained performance and demand enabled by the quality.
Wow, okay, the numbers definitely make the case. But let's dig into the why. What is it about quality, beyond just lasting longer, that creates this kind of financial return?
Well, the article lays out several connected benefits. Longevity is, the obvious starting point. Not buying replacements for 23 years. That's huge savings right there.
Yeah, think of the capital tied up in replacing cheaper stuff every, 3 or 4 years, plus the hassle?
Exactly. And that durability directly impacts customer satisfaction. The gear works, it shows up clean, it performs reliably. No one wants a broken barbecue at their event.
That makes sense. Happy customers mean a repeat business, right?
Yeah.
And a good word of mouth.
Absolutely. Which feeds back into getting those higher rental numbers, maybe even justifying the premium rates. Quality builds reputation.
Okay, so longevity, customer satisfaction, what else?
Reduced maintenance. Just fundamentally, higher quality items tend to need fewer repairs. Less tinkering, less downtime.
Which saves money on parts, maybe labor, but also saves the owner's time they can spend on other things.
For sure. And all of that, the longevity, the reliability, the lower maintenance, it adds up to consistent revenue. You can count on that equipment being ready to go out.
It becomes a dependable asset generating predictable income year after year.
That's the core idea. It shifts from being a consumable expense to a long-term income-producing asset.
So is this just a lucky break with barbecues, or does this principle hold true for other rental items?
Oh, the article is very clear. This isn't just about grills. They applied this quality-first thinking across their inventory.
Right, they mentioned other examples, like party tents.
Yeah, investing in commercial-grade tents, ones that can actually handle, wind and rain, not the flimsy kind that might collapse mid-event.
Yeah.
Huge difference in customer experience there.
And event furniture, too, I saw. Tables and chairs that don't get wrecked after a few uses.
Exactly. Things that can stand up to being loaded, unloaded, set up, taken down constantly. And power tools was another one.
Focusing on professional grade.
Right. Because that attracts a different kind of customer contractors, serious DIYers, who expect performance and are willing to pay a bit more for it.
And things like patio heaters, same idea. Durable, commercial quality.
The common thread is always durability and reliable performance. It reduces your long-term headaches and costs, and it often allows you to justify a better rental rate.
Now, having great gear is one thing, but people need to find it. The article mentions using platforms, specifically Rent Anything Store. How does that fit in?
Well, it's about maximizing the return on that quality investment, right? You've spent the money on good stuff, now you need eyeballs on it.
So platforms increase visibility, get you beyond just local ads or word of mouth.
Yeah, you reach a much wider audience. And importantly, for niche or high-quality items, you can connect with renters who are specifically looking for that step up. They aren't just price shopping for the absolute cheapest.
That makes sense. Connecting supply with the right demand.
Plus, these platforms often have tools that just make life easier. Managing listings, handling bookings, communication. It streamlines the operational side.
Oh, and the reviews. That must be huge for reinforcing the quality message.
Absolutely critical. Good reviews based on positive experiences with reliable equipment. That builds trust instantly and validates the whole quality approach. It becomes social proof.
Before we wrap, there was one piece of very practical advice, a pro tip in the article.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward, but essential. Do your homework before buying anything.
Don't just look at the price tag today.
Right. Research the brands known for durability. Check out reviews from actual users. Maybe ask around in forums or industry groups if you can.
And crucially, think about the total cost of ownership.
Exactly. Not just the purchase price. Consider how long it's likely to last, what maintenance might cost, how much downtime you might face with the cheaper option. It's that whole life cycle cost and benefit analysis.
Taking the long view, basically.
That's the key.
So reflecting on this deep dive into profit through quality equipment rentals, the core message really shines through, doesn't it? Especially with that barbecue example.
Yeah, that story is powerful. Moving away from constantly replacing cheap junk towards investing in things built to last. It wasn't just about spending more, it was a fundamental shift in strategy.
A shift that apparently built a much more sustainable, profitable business over the long haul, and built trust with customers, too.
I mean, $6,300 turning into over $250,000 while the gear is still working 23 years later. It's hard to argue with that as a case study for quality paying off.
It really frames the inventory not as a disposable cost center, but as a valuable revenue-generating asset.
And that really brings it back to you, the listener. This isn't just theoretical business stuff.
Right. This principle of looking past the initial price tag to the long-term value, the durability, the reliability, that applies everywhere.
Think about it in your own context. Are you starting a side hustle? Buying tools for your house? Investing in gear for a hobby?
What seemingly expensive item, maybe something you already own or something you're considering buying, might actually offer a surprising long-term return. A return that might not just be money, but maybe save time, or less frustration, or just better results over years.
Yeah, what's that high-quality thing that, when you really calculate its total benefit over its lifespan, might be one of the smartest investments you could make? Something to think about.